whether you like it or not. If you're in business, you need to market. But what does it look like to be exceptional at your marketing rather than just putting out fires and kind of trying to make things work? Well, that's why we have Kim here today. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself, why this topic matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really excited to be here. You and I have been talking for a while, so I've been waiting, anticipating this conversation. So thank you for having me. So you want to know a little bit about me, I'm guessing. I am the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching, and we have been coaching leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, C-suite marketers for the past 20 plus years. And what we have noticed is that people who perform at an exceptionally high level think in a similar way. And I'm hoping that today we'll get a chance to talk about that.
We absolutely will. And that's really interesting to just conceptualize. And I think it's a great place to start, is just this idea of what does it mean to get into a frame of mind where you're able to perform at a very high level capacity? What does that look like?
Well, again, over the span of my career, I noticed a few things. First of all, I noticed that people at a very high level, let's call them marketers, number one, struggle with the same things. And then the ones that are super, super successful all have three thinking strategies in common. So let's talk about the struggles for a minute. Okay, so where do they struggle? And it's interesting because we see these struggles across industries and across locations. So what are they? Number one is that we find that people in very high positions struggle with isolation. So they have a team around them, they have people that they can delegate to, but they don't always feel like they can totally be honest and open, transparent, and vulnerable with the people around them. They can't share perhaps their worries, their fears, their doubts, right? So they feel like they're holding this heavy load of responsibility on their shoulders alone, and there's nowhere really to deposit that. There's nowhere really they can go and completely open up and be themselves. So number one is isolation. Number two is that we see that these people tend to have friction with other humans. That could be professional, that could be personal. But what are we really talking about? There are two kinds of friction. One is what I call overt friction. You know, when you're mad, you yell, you raise your voice, you get angry, you frown, you have your brows that are furrowed, and you express anger. And the other person is clear that you're not happy. That's one form of friction. But that's not the most common form, interestingly enough. The more common form of friction is what we call covert friction. So you're mad at someone because maybe they're not performing, maybe they're not getting it, maybe they're not, living by the timelines that you expected, maybe they're not rowing in the same direction, maybe they're not getting that same sense of urgency, but you don't have time to address this or deal with this. And so you suck it up, you stay quiet, you lift up the rug, you sweep it under the rug, and the mound on the rug starts to grow. Initially, you could step over it, step around, but eventually the mound gets so high, it's hard to ignore. And inside of you, that tension starts to really build, and it becomes really hard to avoid or not address. But that takes a while, right? So we're having many, many, many examples and moments of this covert friction or tension until a point of, let's call it explosion or a point of no return. So that's thing number two. Thing number three is what I call chronic dissatisfaction. So when we work with highly driven individuals who are often marketers, what we find is these people are high achievers. They do well, but they're not necessarily happy with the speed of their accomplishments. They feel like they're behind. They feel like they could be moving faster. They feel like, yes, we accomplished that, but it should have been more, or we should have been bigger, or, people around me are doing so much better. What's wrong with me? And they start to wonder, like, what's actually going on here? Am I flawed? Am I around the wrong people? Did I hire poorly? Did I, am I aligned with the wrong team? And then they feel a sense of guilt. Why? Because they're thinking about work a lot. They're putting in a lot of hours. And when they're working, they feel like, oh, I should be home with my family or with my partner. And when they're at home with their partner, they're not really super attentive. Maybe they're sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix, but they're on their phone. So they're not really anywhere where they want to be. So they're not producing and they're not getting to where they want to go. And last but not least, it's a term I invented called slippage. What
Ooh.
is what is slippage? These people struggle with life. And so what happens is they let important things slip through the cracks. Hence the term slippage. And what do I mean by the important things? Maybe their health, their nutrition, their sleep. I can't tell you how many people I talk to who don't sleep well.
Mm-hmm.
They're maybe overeating, over drinking, taking recreational drugs, and they're having a hard time dealing with their emotions. So they find a way of zoning out. They find a way of numbing those emotions, but they're
Yeah.
not living their lives in the most optimal state. And time is passing, and things are slipping through the cracks. So those are the 4 areas of struggle. Quick question: any of it resonate?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, think about it. One thing that I actually, I'm going to tell you, I want to ask you about one thing, because one thing didn't necessarily, and I'm curious to know about the context around it. But really, when I think about especially things like slippage and stuff like that, and I love that you coined that term. I think that's really creative. For those types of things, from a human point of view, from a psychological point of view, we're looking at coping mechanisms truly that are ineffective, right? And so, like, I just feel like I just wanted to bring to the forefront the fact that that opens the door to so many other conversations that we're going to probably need to touch on, but maybe not dive into. The second thing that I wanted to note was the friction. I'm curious because that's the only one that I was like, oh, okay. Like, what does this look like? So the anger thing, I'm not typically an angry person. I'm an advocate. If you go and say something that causes harm or is hateful, I will voice. I will absolutely speak out. But then you started talking about this subtle friction,
Covert.
sweeping it under the covert friction, sweeping it under the rug, right? And I was thinking, this is something that oftentimes is talked about will build. I just lost the word. I was thinking it this whole time.
Resentment.
That's the word. So it'll build resentment. But I'm curious, is that only in a team dynamic, or is that something that you can almost build within yourself? And the reason I ask that is because a lot of our viewers and a lot of the people who are in the world with me, and this also relates to the loneliness and the other points you made, they're solopreneurs. They don't really
Yeah.
have a team. They're not relying on somebody else who's like putting each of the straws on the camel's
Yeah.
back, so to speak. It's them.
But it can happen at home. It can
Mm,
happen with your spouse. It can happen with your children. It can happen when,
right.
Your daughter or son, leaves a mess behind them. And
Mm,
instead of addressing it, you just clean up after them. Or you let it seep.
right. So we're
You know,
talking about the very real fact, and I've been saying this for well over a decade, the very real fact that life and business are intricately intertwined.
100%. 100%.
And so when we're talking about being good marketers, being effective, being exceptional, we need to make sure that we're looking at all that we're doing in life and business in a comprehensive sense so that we can bring our best or favorite self to the forefront.
Exactly. So these are the areas that we see people struggling in. And now the
Mm-hmm.
question becomes, so what do exceptional marketers, how do they think? What are the thinking strategies that they have on a day-to-day basis in an active way? What does that look like? What does that sound like? So let's talk about that for a minute. So the first thing that we see is that exceptional marketers are always challenging their own beliefs. So they're asking themselves a very simple question. What do I believe to be true about this person, this problem, this situation, this marketing opportunity, whatever it is, right? What do I believe to be true? And are those beliefs lined up with my goals?
Mm.
Or Or do they actually interfere with my ability to get to where I want to go? So what do I believe to be true? And I cannot emphasize how important this question is, because what do we do normally when we get a project or anything? We're busy doing the work, right? The emphasis is on getting it done, checking it off the box. I have so much to do today, right? It's always on the doing, the action, the activity. It's never on the thinking. And the issue here is that thought, thinking precedes action. And if our thinking isn't lined up with our action, we are never getting the results we want. And normally when we don't get the results we want, what's our reaction? I need to do it differently. Right? Like, what did I do wrong?
And that's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. And so what happens is you attempt to change your actions without really looking at the thinking and the belief systems that are fueling your current action. Because if your thinking isn't lined up with the outcomes you want, there's no way that you could get the outcomes you're looking for. So number one is we must challenge our beliefs and really take a good look at them and say, is my thinking allowing me to get to where I want to go?
Absolutely. And I'm curious to know if you are of the opinion that your beliefs are maybe not synonymous with, but at least associated with your core values.
Yeah, of course. But oftentimes what we find is that people have values, let's call them core values, and they don't behave in alignment with those core values.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the question is why? What's happening here? And so on an ongoing basis, what we see is internal friction, but we also see people who are living with what I call cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Right. So they're living in a way where they say, this is important to me, but I'm doing this. And these two things don't line up. So if I say, for example, I'll use this as example, my health is my number one most important thing, but then I'm sitting in my chair all day long because, I have work to do. Those two things don't line up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can validate those excuses,
right?
And 100%.
Right. So I have an internal conflict that I have to address somehow. Right.
And that leads to the third problem we were talking about, that friction, except it's internal rather than situational.
Internal. Exactly.
See that? Yeah.
So that's, that would fall under the chronic dissatisfaction component, right? So number one is they challenge their beliefs. Number two is, and I'm going to say the term and you're going to go, okay, that's not exciting and that's not new, but let's position it for you. Extraordinary marketers are resourceful. Again, you're like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's exactly what I did. I said, okay.
Okay. Sure. But here's the thing, is that they think about resources wildly different than the average Joe. So what does that mean? It means for them, they have an understanding that there is no shortage of resources. There is no shortage of talent. There's no shortage of time. There's no shortage of money. There's no shortage of help. There's no shortage. And not only is there no shortage, they do not have to be anyone special, anyone famous, anyone, high up on the chain to be able to access those resources. So they have a different relationship with resources. They are comfortable asking for help. They are comfortable asking for things that seem outrageous. They are comfortable seeing an opportunity and grabbing it and not feeling like, I don't have the right to do that. I'm not entitled. So they feel a sense of, hey, I'm just as entitled as anybody else to access this thing. I don't have to have like a crown over my head in order to be able to access that.
I needed to shut up for a minute because I was just about to do one of those, whoa, like, yeah, like I just scored, I don't know. Well, you will know. I won't be able to cite the year, but when Sidney Crosby scored the winning goal in the Olympics a few years ago, and he was like, I was like, yes, that is it. And what you just said, I needed to shut up because I want to, that, if you're watching this whole video, you will find that as a small motivational video somewhere in my feed, because that's amazing. And that is how I want to encourage not just marketers, and understanding that, of course, every business owner needs to be a marketer in some capacity, but not just marketers, but every human being to understand this concept. We are living
It's
in a world
huge.
of abundance.
It's huge. It's huge.
Absolutely. I actually just had a conversation with someone today, and we were speaking about visibility and public speaking. And we were talking about the different communities that we're a part of, and how I recently left a community because their the vibe, for lack of a better word, was very competitive. And I was, that doesn't seem quite right. And so then I joined a community and invested more of my time in the community where it was mutually
More
supportive.
collaborative.
It was this team. It was a team of speakers who individually wanted to advance themselves, but they equally wanted to advance one another. So if they, regardless of whether they were a good fit for something or not, if they knew somebody else was also, they would share it. And that's the idea behind this resilient marketing. I love it. What's number
So
3?
number 3 is that, and it's a very interesting thing because again, you're going to think that this is very obvious, but I do a lot of speaking. And one of the questions, and when I work with people, I ask them to journal in a private and secure online journal. But when I speak, I ask the audience to grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down the following 2 questions and spend 5 minutes answering these questions in writing in a journal format. So the question number 1 is, what do you really, really want more than anything? And question number 2 is, what's getting in the way? What's stopping you from having what you really, really want right now? Now, there are 2 reallys there for a reason. What is the reason? Is because usually when I ask somebody what they really want, they typically answer very quickly and they give you a standard answer. And they think about what they should want, what somebody else wants for them, and they think about it on a very, very surface level. And so this is a different kind of question. I'm asking you, what do you truly deeply want? Think about what you want that is outside of the expectations that the world puts on you. Think about what you want that is unrelated to what your spouse might want or your mother might want or what, everybody thinks you should want. What do you truly deeply want? And what I see is that probably half the room has no idea how to answer that question. They have never given it any thought. And maybe another quarter of the room answers with very tactical things, very materialistic things.
Yeah. I
And
want a big house and a fancy car.
Yeah. And another small portion of the room really, really gives it some thought, and they get clear about how they want to live their lives on a day-to-day basis. And they go deeper. And so what is it that these extraordinary marketers do? They know what they really, really want, and they focus on that. It's not an afterthought. It's not a thought that they have that comes up when Kim shows up in a room and asks them, right? It's something that they are aware of and have front and center in their minds on a daily, weekly basis. What is it that I want? And am I living my life in order to have what I want?
Right.
Right? Does this line up? Does this align?
And what I love about what you just shared with us, both in the struggles and in the 3 amazing ways that exceptional marketers and exceptional business owners, exceptional people, the way they think that allows them to be exceptional. What I love about that is that you really rooted it and then gave us a direction, right? I think that that's a really powerful way to look at, to be a very powerful way to be reflective.
Yeah.
To be self-aware, to set yourself up for success.
Part of the challenge of all of this, sorry, and I'm going to let you wrap up. Part of the challenges of all of this is that, and it's the human condition, we have a blind spot. We're not aware of this one relationship that is crucial. And it's the relationship between the way we think and what we do with that and the results we're getting. So we don't know how our thinking impacts what we do. We're simply unaware. And so for me, my job as a coach is to help you see, you in particular, like each individual in front of me, how your thinking is impacting you impacting your relationships, your leadership, your decision making, impacting your business, your life, your revenues, your health, all of it. That's what I'm here to do.
And that's exactly what everyone needs. Whether you think you need it or not, sorry, you do. Everybody needs that. Everybody needs that support in restructuring their relationship with the way they think and how they behave. I think that's of utmost importance. Now, I feel like that was a really fabulous assertion that kind of puts the cherry on top already. However, based on our conversations in the past, I know that you are a wealth of knowledge. The well is deep with you, Kim. So if there's something else that you feel like our audience needs to hear today, I'm going to give you the chance to share it with them. But first, I want to remind our audience that these conversations happen every single week and that you get to be a part of it. Hit the bell, get notified, subscribe. When the next ones come around, you get to have the conversation with us. Leave a comment. We're not going anywhere. We've been around for a while, and we want you to be a part of this journey. This is how we can do that collaboration, moving ourselves forward, improving ourselves together. Now, with that, I'll get off my soapbox. Kim, please let the people know what they need to hear.
So here it is. Like, as a marketer, as a person who's making a lot of decisions, sometimes it's hard to know how to make the right decisions, whether you're thinking about the decisions you're making personally or professionally. So we came up with a formula called HEAL, the HEAL formula, that will give you, let's call it a structure, a format, a methodology for making decisions in a way that consistently lines up with your goals. And I invite you to come and click the link or click the whatever, the little box there, whatever they're called, the QR code, that's it. Click the QR code and download the HEAL formula. And here's the thing, when you use this framework to make decisions every single time, you will always make decisions that feel right and get you further along the chain towards where you want to go.
I love that so much. And here's the thing about the HEAL formula and actually making decisions in a way that's aligned. We all are presented with so many decisions in a day, and you may not even realize it. And that's oftentimes why at the end of the day, when you need to make more decisions, even the decision of, what are we making for dinner, right? You've got decision fatigue. That's
Yes.
what that is. And it's a real thing, and it weighs heavily. If you can have a system by which to make decisions easier and lean into a more simpler way of living and being, why would you not? Yeah. So I encourage you. I know I'm going to crash the doors as soon as we're done chatting here. Right. I encourage you to grab the HEAL formula and actually figure out, how can I make my decisions easier so that my day-to-day feels simpler? I'm going to give you a quick example before I let you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I wear leggings. If you're watching me right now, I'm showing you my leggings. I wear leggings every day. I made this decision, one decision, a few years ago, so that I didn't need to choose my pants every day. That's one decision less that I have to do every day. And I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference in my morning routine. I know it sounds silly, but that's one way to shift the way you're thinking about your day-to-day and actually action your day in a way that feels aligned and easy.
And comfortable, right? Leggings are so much more comfortable.
Yes, comfortable, easy, relaxed. Get these shoulders away from your ears. Now with that, I'm going to wish you all the best day possible, and we will chat soon. I'll see you on the next show. Bye.